Hello, my name is Brian Garland, and today we will be walking through my AI resume web app. This video is intended to be digestible for non-coders, but in the latter half of the video we will be walking through what is under the hood so you can get a better idea of what's involved in an AI integrated web app in general. If you would like to follow along in the source code, click the GitHub link in the description below, and feel free to follow along in the public repository. Let's get started. All right, so first question, what does this application do? The intention is for it to function as essentially an AI version of a resume. The easiest way to use it is to use a job posting URL, but you can also paste a full description in there. But for good measure, we'll just take this senior prototype technologist URL that I have sitting right here, and we'll paste it in and analyze the job fit. Now this is hitting a Vercel functions API that's using Claude's essentially API so that it is asking Claude a very specific question. Again, this could be Claude, it could be any other OpenAI, Gemini. They all have APIs that you can hit and ask a question inside your application. I'm just using Claude because I tend to like it. Once it comes back, it has a whole bunch of information that's actually provided from Claude, and we'll look at it in a little while about exactly how it's getting that. But essentially it's giving it the context of that job posting, and then it's getting what it can, so it actually pulls, it is using a web scraper that I wrote to actually scrape all this information that you see in here and then put that into the prompt for Claude, and then Claude gives out all these answers based on my resume information. We know that the title was the senior prototype technologist. It's giving a score of 92%, so I'm a good match for this one. It's telling you Claude AI Sonnet 4.5. It's also got a little tooltip telling you about how arbitrary this is, because it's really, in short, Claude's opinion is that I'm a 92% fit, and if we ran this again, it might be the same, and it might be different. It has a very long list of skills for me, and it's choosing which ones are relevant to this specific role. Then it's actually giving a text version of a recommendation in full. So Brian is an exceptional match for this role, unique combination of React type skills, and it goes into a lot more detail. But it basically gives, as a essentially expert consultant on this, its own recommendation. It also breaks down some strengths and growth areas. That's supposed to be things that are strengths and weaknesses essentially. So things that make me a good fit for the job, like proven track record with AI first prototyping, but I don't have any specific Figma design to code workflow experience mentioned in my stuff. Over here on the side, I included, there's actually only 4 total, but I included 4 stories in my data, and then I'm having it pick 2 that are the most relevant to the job description. So it picks 2 of these stories to tell. In this case, it chooses Fluent UI contribution and a training video production in the past as the most relevant ones to include here. And this functions essentially as a resume tailored to this job description. That's what the user experience is meant to be. So instead of getting a resume that I either tailor myself to the specific job, we've all probably done it in the past, this is essentially giving the specific information from, I'd say I'm giving it about probably 10 pages of resume information, but that would be too much to actually put into a resume. I usually keep mine to like 2 pages tops. So you have to choose what you want to show. Otherwise, they won't be able to find what's important to that specific job description. So this is giving exactly what would be fitting to that job description. As a few perks, so one, I wanted to be able to submit applications that would actually, every application that you send usually has a portfolio link. So I wanted to be able to have a link that auto runs specific job search. So say I am applying to this senior React engineer at Maritime app through LinkedIn or something. Then I can run this. I'll paste this one, analyze it. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Claude API, Gemini API, OpenAI API, all of these search actually do cost money. I'd say every time I click this, it actually costs about 1 cent. However, I'm not expecting a huge amount of traffic, so essentially it costs me $1 for every 100 people that use this application. That's just how AI works these days. You get a certain amount of tokens, so every time we run it, it's going to use a little bit of those. So now that we have my 92% match on Senior React Engineer Maritime app, we can copy this link, and then if I were to paste this somewhere, it's a hashed URL so that when you press enter on this one, it's actually going to auto submit. See, auto analyzing job posting from this. So if I send this link to somebody, it will not only open it to bridegarland.com, it will auto submit for that specific job posting so that they can see the results for the job that I want them to see. This makes it a lot easier than, hey, go to my website and put in your job listing URL so you can see how good of a fit I am. I can just make a link for them and it will show them my customized resume for that exact one. Another nice thing about the job description, this one's kind of useful because if we were to paste, for example, Indeed.com, they actually block bots. So this will not work. It will tell you that they blocked our request, and then it suggests that you actually paste the job description in there. So we can actually take all of this and then paste it in the job description one and analyze job fit, and then this should work actually. All right, I'm only a 35% fit for a male lead actor, but it is told to find what would be fitting, so it knows that I had public speaking skills from the past. I have a communication style to diverse audiences, including children, which is all fitting to the actual role that they have. And you can even get more creative with it, so I can say, kill womp rats on the Death Star. One thing about AI that I always find entertaining is you can always throw some curveballs at it and they can tend to be pretty creative. My growth areas are I have no weapons training or combat experience, no experience with spacecraft systems, military or tactical experience. But I do have a problem-solving mindset and experiencing with challenging technical projects. So you can really feed it anything and it will actually find what is best fitting for it essentially. And of course you can put all the basics in here. We have GitHub links, the portfolio code itself, which we'll go to in a second. And then for the old-fashioned people, we can have a nice resume as well. Just the old-fashioned type, LinkedIn. All right, let's actually dive into how this functions. We'll go straight into portfolio code on GitHub, which takes us to, for those of you who aren't too familiar with this is GitHub, which is a platform where you can submit code and keep different versions of your projects. And people can also make copies of these projects and make them their own within the bounds of the copyright licenses. So if you know what you're doing on GitHub, then you can go here and you can fork the repository if you want and make your own version and make your own version of this web app. But let's see what's actually running. So for the actual stack, everything is pretty much in JavaScript because I'm a JavaScript person. So that was what I knew best. That is a React front end, which you'll find in this source folder. And then we have an API that goes into, that has a few, these are actually TypeScript files, not JavaScript files. That's essentially JavaScript files that have strict typing like any other normal language like C or Java. It's meant to make them a little bit more stable than JavaScript is inherently. So this does a lot of the heavy lifting. It does the analyzing. Let's actually jump into that first. So for those of you who don't really know how Claude works, you can go to Claude AI and you can ask any questions like, who is the President of the United States? And it will tell you, based on the internet and all the information out there, it will give you a good answer. And it's even better at bigger questions like summarizing the plot of Les Miserables. And it will actually give you a 200 words or something, its best version of that. Now, in our case, we're asking it a very complicated and specific prompt question. And if you want to know what the actual prompt is, that's what you're going to find in this analyze.ts file, which is run by serverless functions in Vercel. Now, you don't have to use Vercel. You can use something called Azure Functions. This is Vercel Functions. I believe AWS has a functions. They're all serverless functions. I'm using Vercel because I found that basically with the way that they structure their pricing for what I was doing for my own personal thing, I got it for free, so I went with Vercel, and they actually have a pretty good environment in my opinion that is easy to get around and find the logs and stuff that I need for the projects that I'm working on. But yeah, so this is being run in Vercel, the API stuff, and this analyze file is the main analysis function. And then inside the library we have the scraper. That's the actual thing that's scraping these pages for the information that it needs. And then once it has that, so I have the data, which is all of my information. I have some stories where I define like, okay, it's got an ID, it's got a title, it's got an icon, which is a frog, it's got context, skills, outcomes, a whole bunch of information for each of these 4 stories. I summon a Mount Rainier. And then I have resume data, which is essentially a whole bunch of text of my entire resume. The same one that you would see if you were to open here. So all this information that's in my nice and pretty resume is also in right here so that Claude can access that. And then I also have some breakdowns of like skills. These skills are broken down by rating. So my React is rated at a 5, but my C++ is rated at a 2, my C# at a 1, and so on, so that you actually get you know how much I know something, not just that all of these skills are equal. We have some short versions of the experience and my education for easy access. And that's all the context that it has for who I am when it answers that. So if we go back to this API one, to the analyze, this is where it takes the job description that it's scraped using the scraper.ts, and then it compares it with my data.ts, which has all the information as far as my resume and my stories and all that jazz in text form, so it can easily access it for Claude. And then there's lots of stuff going on here actually getting the scraping. But if we go down to here on line 115, we have a variable called system prompt. This is probably the most important thing in the project, because as far as when we ask Claude something, so when I hit the Claude API, as it's called, and then it's essentially asking this question as if you typed it in to Claude.ai essentially. So we are saying, you are an expert career advisor analyzing job fit for Brian Garland. That's me. And this is if you don't really know how to make your own prompts, even when you're talking to Gemini or Claude or OpenAI, this is actually a really good way to start every question that you ask, is tell it what type of person it is. So is it emulating an expert career advisor? Because then it's going to take the tone of that. You can also say like, you are John Wayne, and it'll give you something in the voice of John Wayne, essentially, based on all the information it has on John Wayne. Then I give it an important note. You must respond only with valid JSON. This is a really important one for how you use it in these types of web apps. So I need essentially a nice JSON structure that's going to give me a title, a scorecard, which are the skills in their correct format, a recommendation object, a list of strengths, a list of growth areas, and 2 stories, or 1 in this case, up to 2 stories, I should say. It's being told to give me that JSON, which I'm going to need to display my web page. I'll be provided with a resume with a list of skills. This is all the stuff I showed you in the data.ts. Collection of personal stories, also the stories object in that data.ts, and the job description, which is scraped from the actual thing. So these are the 3 things it's given, and then it's going to make and then I give it an example object of what I want it to return to me. So I want it to look exactly like this. I'm going to give it an example so that it can just basically replace that stuff. Then I give it a list of rules. Match score must be between 0 and 100. Strengths must be an array of strings. Gaps must be an array of strings, so forth and so forth. Relevant skills must be between 6 and 12 objects, and so on. I'll let you read through that if you really want to know everything. And then it will go through and essentially take the result as well. And a lot of this is also error handling you can feel free to read through if you want to. And then it will actually return the response to my actual home page. So that's the gist of how AI integrated web apps function using React and serverless functions. You can, again, click the link below in the description to access the source code. The README will walk you through all the steps to get your own forked version up and running in your local environment. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more content like this, just hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Bye.